Hey everybody, welcome to Round the Twist, episode 58. It is September 22nd, 2010, and this is the best I can do for a Phoebe cameo is to tempt her with a bit of rawhide. And she's been a good girl, waiting very patiently. Oh, let's see. It's been a busy week between work and my parents were down last weekend. There hasn't been a whole lot of knitting. There's been some casting on, but not a whole lot of knitting. So I guess we'll jump right into it and talk about what's on my needles. Let's see. Hang on, let me get it untangled here. Ooh, there's loose cable needles here. Okay. The Unisock, now, really tangled, now has a full heel flap, leg, heel flap, heel turn. I just need to pick up the stitches on the edges of the heel flap and start working my way out the gusset. So that's made a little bit of progress, not a whole lot. I was planning on working on that last weekend, and when my parents came down, it's not exactly a pattern that's conducive to knitting when there are 3 dogs tearing around and taking over my knitting chair. So, not a whole lot there, but hopefully this next weekend I will be able to make some progress on that. The Clapetee did see some knitting action. My True Blood Red Clapetee. I'm still not to the drop stitches. I am about 20 rows away from starting the straight rows. So I have half of an increased section, one more full increased section, and then they have you do rows 1 through 6 again. And I will be out to its widest point. I thought I was going to have a little bit more time to knit on this morning, actually, because I guess this weekend when my dad was down helping me with some yard work, actually, I was sleeping. He was outside spraying weeds for me, and he was using the hose to spray the weed be gone on the yard, and my flood alert alarm on my sump pump pit was going off, and turns out there was a little bit of an indoor water feature happening in my basement because the faucet on the outside of the house runs to the inside of my basement for the lines to run. And it was cracked. And I haven't used it all summer, so I didn't know it was cracked. This was the first time it had been used yet. Indoor water feature. So I had a plumber by today. Very good looking. Who knew you could order a plumber online? One of the plumbing companies in my hometown, or in Omaha, actually has an online order form where you fill out all your information, you request your exact appointment time, you fill out the problem in a comment field, and then they call you back like that day or the next business day and just confirm everything with you. And they're like, okay, so-and-so will be your tech and we'll send him right out. I had a wonderful guy named Jason. He was in and out of here in about 40 minutes. I'm not used to service technicians being that quick. So I was expecting to get at least to the straight rows so I'd have a drop stitch to show you guys, but sorry, 40 minutes. I went to bed after that. So, yeah, not a whole lot of progress. I think I've gotten about a repeat and a half done on this week. Again, knitting straight from the hank of the Blue Moon Fiber Arts Woo Boo in True Blood Red. Not exactly conducive to knitting from a hank when puppies are present, because they tend to bounce on the hank and tangle it. So, not good. The stained glass blankie, my crochet hexagon blankie, I got 6 more done. This was a lot. This was basically my entire Yarny accomplishment for the weekend when my parents were here. I know that's sad, but this is what I did. I made little crochet hexagons, and I only made 6 of them. Actually, I only made 5. I did this one last night. Yeah, I don't know. I just lost my knitting mojo over the weekend. So 6 more to add to the pile. I think I added them all up that were in the bag, and I posted on my project page how many were done as of last week. I think I was up to like between 170 and 180 of them. So add another 6 onto whatever's posted most recently on my project page. Some new stuff that I started though. The Kayuni rainbow cardigan, which I am not using the EQ, the rainbow colorway for. I am using, I'm going to grab one of the tags. I am using the EF. I don't know if you guys can read that or not. It's the kind of muted I call it muted rainbow. And once I got it all wound up, those are the colors. 4 colors rather than 7, so it's not going to be quite as colorful as some of them that you see if you look at the KUNI projects page, which there's 307 projects, so I think mine makes 308. But I am offsetting the colors. I have, oh, hang on, 2 balls that I wound. One is color A, one is color B. I can't remember which unless I'm knitting with them. I did have to gut part of each ball in order to get it to the same point so that the colors will be offset by 2. So the pink and the purple are going to line up, the blue and the green will line up, and then the first one will go to purple and the second one will go to pink. And see, I wrote up, I love Post-it notes. I wrote out my little color progression so I would be sure. I only had to rewind one of the balls twice. One was wound the opposite direction of the other 3. So always a good idea if you're going to do a KUNI, using the KUNI or any other progressive color thing, to make sure you rewind everything. And the other thing that I did with the KUNI when I was in the process of winding it, the yarn stunk. Honestly, it smelled like kind of like rancid oil. It just smelled really bad. Not awful, but enough that I didn't want to have to deal with the stink. So I actually skeined it up first, washed each skein, each hank that I had, and then wound it into the balls from there. It was interesting. The color of the water that came off of the hanks on the first wash with a big dollop of soak in the water was kind of a tannish gray, nasty. It did not look pretty, and I was very, very glad that I washed before. And then I was a good girl, and I knit up my swatch. I'm probably screwing myself because I knit this in one color, but I'm getting stitch gauge across. The row gauge is a little bit off, but when you're doing everything by knit until it's this many centimeters long, okay, cool, I can handle that. Not as big of a deal. And the pattern, I will say the pattern is a little bit loose. It's a free pattern from Miss Sorensen. It kind of assumes you know something about sweater construction before you knit it, so I probably wouldn't recommend it for a newbie. It's a very easy color work pattern, but tension is on a 3.5, which is, that's a US, 3.5 is a US 4. 24 stitches and 30 rows of plain knitting is a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 10 centimeter or 4 by 4 inch swatch. I want to say I did 30 stitches and like 36 rows just to make sure that I had plenty and the curling was allowed for since it's a stockinette swatch. She doesn't say, it says plain knitting, so I just did stockinette. I didn't do a color work, which might turn around and bite me in the hind parts. We'll see. If so, you'll get to hear all about it, I'm sure. I got to learn a couple new things, though, when I cast on. I did wash my swatch and let it dry, how I'm going to let the sweater dry, and yeah, got gauge. Yay. I did learn a couple things. I learned how to do it's going to be hard to see, but I learned how to do a 2-color cast on. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's actually similar to a long tail, but you don't have a long tail, if that makes sense. I'll link to the YouTube video that I used, and then I'm doing the 2-color rib. There's the back. My floats are nice and loose, so it's stretchy. Yay. It is curling a little bit, which I knew about, but it'll come out with a good block. So yeah, that's the very beginnings of my KUNI. I have 2 centimeters of ribbing. I need to do 3. This has been my TV knitting, and the ribbing has been like potato chips. It's been fabulous. So right now I also found, the other thing that I found, well, besides learning to do the color work, I found an online calculator for, like, the pattern actually tells you to knit, when you change needle sizes from the smaller needles on the ribbing to the larger needles for the body, just to increase with 11 stitches in the first round. Okay, I found an online calculator that tells you how to do that, and I'll link to that in the show notes as well. It's beautiful. You plug in numbers and it calculates everything for you. But I have one more work in progress to tell you about. We're at the 10-minute mark, so I will tell you all about that in part 2.